Tarakam Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujagam Sri Jiva Gopalakam Sri Gauranga Gunanuganna.
Haribo?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Can you hear me, Vinkat?
Yeah, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I thought I might have some audio difficulties here at the last minute. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the Prabhupada Disciples Association. And we want to welcome everyone to the Wednesday night Caitanya-caritāmṛta class, read from the unedited original books that were published in 1974, I believe, of humanity. And for all of our friends globally that are joining us now on a weekly basis, we want to let other people know in their works about our 3-class-a-week schedule, which is Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Caitanya-caritāmṛta class, and on Saturday morning, Bhagavad Gita class as it is, the unedited version, not the yellow books that they're distributing these days in Prabhupada's mission, one of his missions, let's say. And on Sunday, Srimad Bhagavatam, the reading of the book from the original 62 version of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the people in this group prescribe only to the unedited books, seeing that that was Prabhupada's order not to change his books, what to speak of the practices that are being conducted in his movement that have been changed due to lack of information to the general populace. I just got, we're getting constant messages worldwide these days from different people wanting to know about initiations and wanting to know about the different programs that we're running. And we want to thank you all for supporting what we're doing. I believe in our Prabhupada Disciples Association Facebook page, we're increasing daily the number of members in that group. I think we're at 3,200. And I must say it's very thrilling to see such a positive response from people around the globe that are interested in knowing about Prabhupada as Diksha and Siksha Guru from his disciples, the Prabhupada Disciples Association. So this is a great encouragement. We look by the end of the month, Yaśodā Prabhu, I expect we'll have 4,000 people in the Prabhupada Disciples Association group reviewing our posts, making comments, and we're encouraging them to come forward and join us in our online classes, which are also being streamed live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, Prabhupada TV. So proliferation of this group and the proliferation of its membership is an objective of our team. We want more people, more and more people to take shelter of Prabhupada as Diksha and Shiksha Guru and clear away the fog that is currently existing in our sampradaya. There's a lot of confusion. So we'll carry on. We've been reading the diary of Srila Prabhupada, and it's been a great source of inspiration for all of us to hear Prabhupada's own words in his diary as he's making his journey from Calcutta across the ocean to New York City to begin to carry out the mission of his guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is the true adventurer, the true preacher of the Sankirtan mission that was predicted by Lord Chaitanya that it would spread to every town and village in the world. And this is Prabhupada's journey as he recorded it in his personal diary back in, this is the diary here. I got this from Brahmananda and his brother Gargamuni Prabhu's when they came to Hamilton in 1994 to visit me. So I've treasured these books very much. I know they're not printed anymore, I don't believe. So hopefully in the future we can reprint them and have them available for everyone that wants to enter into Prabhupada's Leela and be a part of his mission of spreading Krishna consciousness according to his instructions. So it's Friday the 10th of August, 1965. Today, the ship is plying very smoothly, Srila Prabhupada says. I feel today better. But I'm feeling separation of Sri Vrindavan Dham and my Lord Sri Govinda, Gopinath, Radha Damodar. The only solace is Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, of course, in which I'm tasting the nectar of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I have left Bharata Bhumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order. There you go. So those that don't have this diary, listen carefully to what Prabhupada was foretelling into the future in his diary. I have no qualification, he says, but I have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of his divine grace. And he's referring to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, his guru who gave him his instruction. And that is the business of the Prabhupada disciples, to follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, just like he followed in the footsteps of his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, exactly in that footprint, not deviated. But I have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of his divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy so far away from Vrindavan. Saturday, August 11th, 1965. Today,
September 11th.
Oh, September 11th. Excuse me. You're right. He's just heading. Sorry about that, everyone. Today, the ship ran on very smoothly. The sky was clear and there was sunshine all the day. At about 7:30 in the morning, we passed on the Azori Group Islands under the Portugal Republic. There was again rehearsal for lifeboat saving at 4:30 p.m. There was rehearsal of the fire brigades also. At night, there was profuse moonlight on the ocean and considerable lurching also, but did not affect me very much as it used to do in the Arabian Sea. The Atlantic Ocean is more kind to me than all other seas so far we have crossed over. It is all Lord Krishna's grace. Sunday, September 12th. So remember, Prabhupada had suffered that severe heart attack, which had incapacitated him for many, many days. So now he's monitoring himself by how the ocean is treating him and making sure that he would not suffer a further heart attack and may end his journey. So completely on his own, no help from anyone, simply a ticket on a freighter heading to New York City. Sunday, the 12th of September. SR Day. Today there's a great deal of lurching, although the sky is clear. Mrs. Pandya, although a little lady, but very intelligent and learned also, she has foretold about my future. Thanks to her prediction. All blessings of Lord Kṛṣṇa for her. The crisis which I have supposed to have crossed is also mentioned by her. That was the heart attack. If I have crossed the crisis, then that is goodwill of Lord Kṛṣṇa, my friend and philosopher. In the evening, there was too much lurching, and I felt a bit seasickness. I could not take my food properly. A little sweets were accepted with some relish. The lurching continued, continued till midnight. Monday the 13th. This will be the last segment of the diary for tonight. Today is the 32nd day of our journey from Calcutta. After midnight yesterday, the lurching decreased, and I felt relief. In the morning also, I could not take my breakfast properly. Then I cooked bhati chachari. It appeared to be delicious, and I was able to take some food. Today, I have disclosed my mind to my companion, Lord Sri Krishna. There is a Bengali poem made by me today in this connection. At about 11, there is still lurching. The captain tells that they have had no such calmness. They'd had never such calmness of the Atlantic. I said it is Lord Krishna's mercy. His wife asked me to come back again with them so they may have again a calm Atlantic Ocean. So on the return, she's asking Prabhupada, please come with us. Krishna is protecting you. If the Atlantic would have shown its usual face, perhaps I would have died. But Lord Krishna has taken charge of the ship. All glories to the Sankirtan movement and the adventures of Srila Prabhupada on his journey to America to begin the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna. Vinkat Prabhu, please bring forward our Jaya Radha Madhava prayers to be sung by our Guru for everyone to chant along and absorb their minds and their ears, absorb their ears and their minds in this transcendental pastime of the Prabhupada Disciples Association. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna tiro banachari. Jamuna tiro banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana-randana. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana-randana. Yamuna tiro banachari. Yamuna tiro banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Muspa Paramahansa Parivrajaga-ācārya Sattva Small Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda Gauri Vaishnava ki jai. Nāma-ācārya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Jai Kaho Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Śrīvāsādhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Kṛṣṇa Gopinath Sam Khand Radha Khand Giridhar ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Dwarka Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glories to the Assembly. All glories to the Assembly. Thank you very much.
Hari Hari Bo.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prestaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha
Maha.
Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshataham Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. We are reading from the original non-adulterated 1974 version of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. All the synonyms, translation, and purports are from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Today we'll be reading from Adi-lila, chapter 2, text number 8. We will read a few of the verses. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Vishnu Paratattva Purna Jnana Purnananda Parama Mahatva. Swayam Himself, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, of all-pervading Vishnu, Paratattva, the ultimate truth, Purna Jnana, full knowledge, Purnananda, full bliss, Parama, supreme, Mahatva, greatness. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna, the original form of the personality of Godhead, is the summum bonum of the all-pervading Vishnu. He is all-perfect knowledge and all-perfect bliss. He is the supreme transcendence. Text number 9. Nanda Sutta Bali Yanri Bhagavati Gai Se Krishna Avatirna Caitanya Gosai. Nanda Sutta, the son of Nanda Maharaja. Bali, as. Yanri, who. Bhagavati, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Gai is sung. Say that. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Avatirana, descended. Caitanya Gosai, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. He whom Srimad Bhagavatam describes as the son of Maharaj Nanda, of Nanda Maharaj, as descended to earth as Lord Chaitanya. Purport. According to the rules of rhetorical arrangement for efficient composition in literature, a subject should be mentioned before its predicate. The Vedic literature frequently mentions Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and therefore these three terms are widely known as the subjects of transcendental understanding. But it is not widely known that what is approached as the impersonal Brahman is the effulgence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental body. Nor is it widely known that the Supersoul or Paramatma is only a partial representation of Lord Chaitanya, who is identical with Bhagavan himself. Therefore, the descriptions of Brahman as the effulgence of Lord Chaitanya, Paramatma as his partial representation, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna as identical with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be verified by evidence from authoritative Vedic literatures. The author wants to establish first that the essence of the Vedas is Vishnu Tattva, the absolute truth Vishnu, the all-pervading Godhead. the Vishnu Tattva as different categories, of which the highest is Lord Krishna, the ultimate Vishnu Tattva, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita and throughout the Vedic literature. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is described as Nanda Sutta, the son of King Nanda. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Nanda Sutta has again appeared as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because the conclusion of the Vedic literature is that there is no difference between Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This the author will prove. If it is thus proved that Sri Krishna is the origin of all tattvas, truths, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and that there is no difference between Sri Krishna and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it will not be difficult to understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the same origin of all tattvas, the same absolute truth as he is revealed to students of different realization is called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Text number 10. Prakasha Visheshe Tenhadaretino Nam Brahma Paramatma Ar Swayam Bhagavan. Prakasha of manifestation, Visheshe in variety, Tenha he, Dhare holds, Tina 3, Nama names, Brahma Brahman, Paramatma super soul, Ar and Swayam himself, Bhagavan the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In terms of his various manifestations, he is known in three features called the impersonal Brahman, the localized Paramatma, and the original personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained the word Bhagavan in his Bhagavat Sandarbha. The personality of Godhead, being full of all conceivable and inconceivable potencies, is the absolute supreme whole. Impersonal Brahman is a partial manifestation of the absolute truth, realized in the absence of such complete potencies. The first syllable of the word Bhagavan is Bha, which means sustainer and protector. The next letter, Ga, means leader, pusher, and creator. Va means dwelling. All living beings dwell in the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord dwells within the heart of every living being. Combining all these concepts, the word Bhagavan carries the import of inconceivable potency in knowledge, energy, strength, opulence, power, and influence, devoid of all varieties of inferiority. Without such inconceivable potencies, one cannot fully sustain or protect. Our modern civilization is sustained by scientific arrangement devised by many great scientific brains. We can just imagine, therefore, the gigantic brain whose arrangements sustain the gravity of the unlimited number of planets and satellites, and who creates the unlimited space in which they float. If one considers the intelligence needed to orbit man-made satellites, one cannot be fooled into thinking that there is not a gigantic intelligence responsible for the arrangements of the various planetary systems. There is no reason to believe that all the gigantic planets float in space without the superior arrangement of a superior intelligence. This subject is clearly dealt with in Bhagavad Gita, where the personality of Godhead says, I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. Bhagavad Gita 15:13. Where the planets not held in the grip of the personality of Godhead, they would all scatter like dust in the air. Modern scientists can only impractically explain this inconceivable strength of the personality of Godhead. The potencies of the syllables ba, ga, and va apply in terms of many different meanings. Through his different potential agents, the Lord protects and sustains everything, but he himself personally protects and sustains only his devotees. Just as a king personally sustains and protects his own children, while entrusting the protection and sustenance of the state to various administrative agents. The Lord is the leader of his devotees, as we learn from Bhagavad Gita, which mentions that the personality of Godhead personally instructs his loving devotees how to make certain progress on the path of devotion, and thus surely approach the kingdom of God. The Lord is also the recipient of all the adoration offered by his devotees, for whom he is the objective and the goal. For his devotees, the Lord creates a favorable condition for developing a sense of transcendental love of Godhead. Sometimes he does this by taking away a devotee's material attachments by force and baffling all his material protective agents. For thus the devotee must completely depend on the Lord's protection. In this way, the Lord proves himself the leader of his devotees. The Lord is not directly attached to the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, for he is eternally busy in the enjoyment of transcendental bliss with his internal potential paraphernalia. Yet, as the initiator of the material energy, as well as the marginal potency, the living beings, he expends himself as the Purusha avatars who are invested with potencies similar to his. The Purusha avatars are also in a category of Bhagavat Tattva, because each and every one of them is identical with the original form of the personality of Godhead. The living entities are his infinitesimal particles and are qualitatively one with him. They are sent into this material world for material enjoyment to fulfill their desires to be independent individuals, but still they are subject to the supreme will of the Lord. The Lord deputes himself in the state of supersoul to supervise the arrangement for such material enjoyment. The example of a temporary fair is quite appropriate in this connection. If the citizens of a state assemble in a fair to enjoy for a short period, the government deputes a special officer to supervise it. Such an officer is invested with all governmental power and therefore is identical with the government. When the fair is over, there's no need of such an officer, and he returns home. Such an officer is compared to the Paramatma. The living beings are not all in all. They are undoubtedly parts of the Supreme Lord and are qualitatively one with him. Yet, they are subject to his control. This, they are never equal to the Lord or one with him. The Lord who associates with the living beings is the Paramatma, or supreme living being. No one, therefore, should view the tiny living beings and supreme living beings to be on an equal level. The all-pervading truth which exists eternally during the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world, and in which the living beings rest in trance, is called the impersonal Brahman. Text number 11. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajñayamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyati. Vadanti, they say, tat, that, tattvavidaha, learned souls, tattvam, the absolute truth, yat, which, jnanam, knowledge, advayam, non-dual, Brahma, Brahman, iti, thus, Paramatma, Paramatma, iti, thus, Bhagavan, Bhagavan, iti, thus, Shabdyati is known. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth say that it is non-dual knowledge and is called impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This Sanskrit verse appears as the 11th verse of the first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Sutta Goswami answers the question of the sages headed by Shonaka Rishi concerning the essence of all scriptural instructions. Tattvavidaha refers to persons who have knowledge of the supreme absolute truth. They can certainly understand knowledge without duality because they are on the spiritual platform. The absolute truth is known sometimes as Brahman, sometimes as Paramatma, and sometimes as Bhagavan. Persons who are in knowledge of the truth know that one who tries to approach the absolute truth simply by mental speculation will ultimately realize the impersonal Brahman. And one who tries to approach the absolute truth through yoga practice will be able to realize Paramatma. But one who has complete knowledge and spiritual understanding realizes the spiritual form of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Devotees of the personality of Godhead know that Sri Kṛṣṇa, the son of the king of Vraja, is the absolute truth. They do not discriminate between Sri Krishna's name, form, quality, and pastimes. One who wants to separate the Lord's absolute name, form, and qualities must be understood to be lacking in absolute knowledge. A pure devotee knows that when he chants the transcendental name Krishna, Sri Krishna is present as transcendental sound. He therefore chants with full respect and veneration. When he sees the forms of Sri Krishna, he does not see anything different from the Lord. If one sees otherwise, he must be considered untrained in absolute knowledge. This lack of absolute knowledge is called Maya. One who is not Krishna conscious is ruled by the spell of Maya, under the control of a duality in knowledge. In the absolute, all manifestations of the Supreme Lord are non-dual, just as the multifarious forms of Vishnu, the controller of Maya, are non-dual. Empiric philosophers who pursue the impersonal Brahman accept only the knowledge that the personality of the living entity is not different from the personality of the Supreme Lord. And mystic yogis who try to locate the Paramatma accept only the knowledge that the pure soul is not different from the supersoul. The absolute conception of a pure devotee, however, includes all others. A devotee does not see anything except in his relationship with Krishna, and therefore his realization is the most perfect of all. Text number 12. Tanhara Angera Shuddha Kirana Mandala, Upanishad Caitanya Brahma Sunirmala, Tanhara, his, Angera, of the body, Shuddha, pure, Kirana, of rays, Mandala, realm, Upanishad, the Upanishads, Kahi, say, Tanri, unto that, Brahma, Brahman, Sunirmala, transcendental. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. What the Upanishads call the transcendental, impersonal Brahman is the realm of the glowing effulgence of the same Supreme Person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A mantra of the Mundaka Upanishad 2.2.10, 11.12 gives information regarding the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It states, Hiranmaye parikushi virajam brahmanishkalam tatshubhram jyotisham jyotis tadyadatma viduhu natatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyutobanti kutuyam agnihi tameva bhantamanubhati sarvam tasya bhasha sarvamidam vibhati brahmevedam amritam purastad brahma paschad brahma dakshinataschodtarena adashurdvam cha prasritam brahmevedam vishvamidam varishtam. In the spiritual realm, beyond the material covering, is the unlimited Brahman effulgence, which is free from material contamination. That effulgent white light is understood by transcendentalists to be the light of all lights. In that realm, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity for illumination. Indeed, whatever illumination appears in the material world is only a reflection of that supreme illumination. That Brahman is in front and in back, in the north, south, east, and west, and also overhead and below. In other words, that supreme Brahman effulgence spreads throughout both the material world, the material and spiritual skies. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who has opened my eyes, who has opened our eyes from the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. So today we read quite a few verses, and there's a tremendous amount of information. Basically, this is the Caitanya-caritāmṛta is well known amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas to be the topmost literature pertaining to the life and teachings of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Krishna Das Kaviraj is systematically explaining the meaning of all the first 14 verses of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta that he has given in chapter 1, and he has described the various tattvas. Here he's explaining the exalted position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the position of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. As anybody who reads Srila Prabhupada's books and is even familiar, vaguely familiar with his teachings, there are different aspects and different practitioners of yoga, different practitioners of spiritual life. We see here how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given the position, a same position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's quite significant when we look at text number 8, Swayam Bhagavan Kṛṣṇa, Vishnu Paratattva, Purñāna Purnānanda, Paramat Parama Mahatva. Kṛṣṇa, the original form of the personality of Godhead, is the Summum Bonum of the all-pervading Vishnu. He is all perfect knowledge and all perfect bliss. He is the supreme transcendence. This is very important because, as anybody who reads Srila Prabhupada's books, we know that there are some other Vaishnava Sampradayas, particularly in South India, the Sri Vaishnavas, the followers of Ramanuja, and the Tattvavadis, the followers of Madhvacharya, who basically their position is that Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayana, is the original personality of Godhead, and that Kṛṣṇa is just an avatar, an incarnation. We in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, along with the followers of the Vallabha Sampradaya and the Nimbarka Sampradaya, we maintain that Kṛṣṇa, the original two-headed form of Kṛṣṇa, is the personality of Godhead, from whom all of the other manifestations, Narayana and all the forms in Vaikuntha, emanates from. Now, this is a very intricate subject matter, which is also discussed in the Brahma Samhita. We went to South India one time, Guru Kripa and myself, and we had a discussion in Udupi in 1972 with one of the Swamis, one of the Paryaya Swamis. And he was arguing that this position of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, that Kṛṣṇa is the personality of Godhead, nobody else accepts this. And basically we said, no, it is accepted by many, many Vaishnavas. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Samhita, and other Upanishads, Kṛṣṇa is described as the original personality of Godhead. We did not pursue the issue very much, but when we saw Srila Prabhupada a few months later, and when we described that incident with this Swamiji, Prabhupada said, yes, there is no real difference, just like Vishnu and Kṛṣṇa are not different. We don't fight with them over this issue. After all, they are in our Sampradaya, so we can respectfully point out what is our position. The best way to enter this is according to our acharyas, acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, such as Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and then we have Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladi Vidyabhushana, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and so many other acharyas. According to our acharyas, this is the position they have taken, and we just follow that. That is Prabhupada said, that is a respectful way of disagreeing with them. But the reality, Prabhupada says in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, this point is explained in considerable detail. What is the position of Kṛṣṇa? What is the position of Lord Vishnu? What is the position of Narayana, the Chaturvyuha, the fourfold expansions? Everything is given. And here we see that Krishnadas Kaviraj is giving so many different systematic explanations. He's quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada is also explaining in so many ways. We see in text number 10 how Prabhupada is quoting from Jiva Goswami, explaining the meaning of the word Bhagavan. It is well known that Srila Prabhupada has given many lectures where say that Bhagavan means one is full of all opulences, full of 6 opulences, full of wealth, full of knowledge, full of renunciation, full of beauty. So many, all these 6 exalted qualities, that Bhagavan Sri Krishna is completely full in all these opulences. This is described in the Vishnu Purana. So this, when we look at Prabhupada's books, if you were to take each and every sentence and put it there like a bullet point, there is so many different levels of realizations. There are so many gems. It's like going to the ocean and you put a basket in the ocean and you would come up with so many priceless gems. There are so many realizations. That's why Prabhupada said in one conversation that these books are the manifestation of God. Not that he was saying that he is God, he is the servant of God, but God is explained in these books. Krishna is explained nicely by his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, in the position of the living entity, the position of the material nature, the position of Krishna, the various incarnations, the different manifestations of Krishna. This is very important. In text number 11, which is a citation from Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a very important verse that Srila Prabhupada explained many, many times in various lectures describing what is the absolute truth. The impersonalists or the Mayavadis, they focus on the impersonal aspect. But besides the impersonal aspect, there's two other aspects. There's the Paramatma feature, that Krishna is within the heart of every living entity. Ishvaraha sarvabhutanam riddeshi arjuna tishtati, that I'm within the heart of every living entity. We see in Kali Yuga, with the advance of Kali Yuga and the atheistic philosophies, that people have this nonsense philosophy, oh, you only live once. They don't accept life after death. They don't understand the position of the soul. This is characteristic of the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the age of ignorance. But the transcendental light, the transcendental knowledge given by the great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada helps to dissipate this darkness, dissipate this ignorance. It is not very complicated. It is not very difficult to understand. Simply one has to use his hearing, his two ears, and hear submissively. I remember one time in 1993, I visited a devotee in Florida, and he confided to me that he was having problems with his chanting because he had to do so much travel to do for his living. He was selling various products. He had to go to different cities, different places. I says, well, do you have a tape recorder in your car? He says, yes. I said, you can get a tape of Prabhupada chanting japa, and when you drive, you can chant with Srila Prabhupada. You can get a tape of Prabhupada giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class, and you can listen to the class. You can get a tape of Prabhupada chanting Jai Radha Madhava, chanting the Samsara prayers, chanting so many wonderful songs. And in this way, you're associating with Prabhupada. Prabhupada, he purposely and specifically made all these recordings so that any devotee for the next 9,500 years, 10,000 years, can listen to his divine grace and associate with him. Every day I have a habit. When I get up, I take my little phone and put the Samsara prayers on. You can go on YouTube, you can put Samsara prayers, and there's numerous recordings of Srila Prabhupada chanting the Samsara prayers. As a matter of fact, if you go to this website called causelessmercy.com, there's like 179 or 180 different recordings of Srila Prabhupada chanting all different kinds of bhajans, and they have numerous recordings of Srila Prabhupada chanting the Samsara prayers. Wonderful. Prabhupada says in the fourth canto that the voice of a pure devotee is very powerful because it is in direct contact with these saffron mercy particles that are over the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is up to us to take advantage of that association. It is not that Prabhupada is dead and gone. That is not correct. In 1975 in Atlanta, Georgia, on the occasion of the disappearance day of his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada stated, it is not that he is dead and gone. That is not spiritual understanding. So we at the Hare Krishna Society and Prabhupada Disciples Association, we are always emphasizing this point that His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada is available now for anybody who wants to hear. You can hear, you can read, you can chant. And if you say that you don't have time, so much time, then you listen in the car on your way to work or whatever you do. You apply your sense of hearing. Pray to Prabhupada and Krishna to some way or other give you the taste for hearing. There are so many wonderful things about Krishna consciousness. So many wonderful things. It's simply a matter of developing the taste for hearing. We see in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, we recite these verses that the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Saravana Kirtana, Ridyantasto Yabadrani Vidunosti Surit Satam, Nashta Prayeshu Babadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. That by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, the message of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, all the misgivings and dirty things in the heart will be cleared up. And one will gradually get a taste for hearing and serving the personality of Godhead. Just like in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, it is described, because one of the questions of the sages at Naimisharanya, that now that Lord Krishna has left the planet, where are the principles of religion? How are we to find out the actual principles of religion? And in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, in the first canto, third chapter, text number 43, it is explained, Krishna Swadamopagate Dharmajnana Dhibhi Saha Kalo Nashta Drishamesha Puranarko Adhunoditaha. Prabhupada translates, this Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Purport by His Divine Grace. Lord Sri Krishna as his eternal Dhamma or abode, where he eternally enjoys himself with his eternal associates and paraphernalia. And his eternal abode is a manifestation of his internal energy, whereas the material world is a manifestation of his external energy. When he descends on the material world, he displays himself with all paraphernalia in his internal potency, which is called Atma Maya. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he descends by his own potency, Atma Maya. His form, name, fame, paraphernalia, abode, etc. are not, therefore, creations of matter. He descends to reclaim the fallen souls and to reestablish codes of religion which are directly enacted by him. Except for God, no one can establish the principles of religion. Either he or a suitable person empowered by him can dictate the codes of religion. Real religion means to know God, our relation with him, and our duties in relation with him, and to know ultimately our destination after leaving this material body. The conditioned souls who are entrapped by the material energy hardly know all these principles of life. Most of them are like animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. They are mostly engaged in sense enjoyment under the pretension of religiosity, knowledge, or salvation. They are still more blind in the present age of quarrel or Kali Yuga. In the Kali Yuga, the population is just a royal edition of the animals. They have nothing to do with spiritual knowledge or godly religious life. They are so blind that they cannot see anything beyond the jurisdiction of the subtle mind, intelligence, or ego. But they are very much proud of their advancement in knowledge, science, and material prosperity. They can risk their lives to become a dog or hog just after leaving the present body, for they have completely lost sight of the ultimate aim of life. The personality of God, Sri Krishna, appeared before us just a little prior to the beginning of Kali Yuga, and he returned to his eternal home practically at the commencement of Kali Yuga. While he was present, He exhibited everything by his different activities. He spoke the Bhagavad Gita specifically and eradicated all pretentious principles of religiosity. And prior to his departure from this material world, he empowered Srila Vyasadeva through Narada to compile the messages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And thus both the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam are like torch bearers for the blind people of this age. In other words, if men in this age of Kali want to see the real light of life, they must take to these two books only, and their aim of life will be fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life, Lord Sri Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad Bhagavatam as the direct representation of Lord Krishna. One who can see Srimad Bhagavatam can see also Lord Sri Krishna in person. They are identical. What important point here, Prabhupada is raising the issue. He descends to reclaim the fallen souls and to reestablish codes of religion which are directly enacted by him. Except for God, no one can establish the principles of religion. Either he or a suitable person empowered by him can dictate the codes of religion. Prabhupada is indirectly referring him to personalities like him and great acharyas and powerful prophets and great saints who are sent by the Godhead himself to enlighten humankind and deliver the transcendental message. Hare Krishna. Vishwakarma, you give us your bhashya? Vishwakarma, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm just getting my microphone turned on again. Thank you very much for that amazing discussion on Caitanya-caritāmṛta, which was very comprehensive. Not only the purports that Srila Prabhupada wrote in this particular section of Adi Leela, but also your explanation to enhance our further understanding of the mercy that all of us in this group are experiencing through the process of devotional service and the method of Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. Especially here in the West, the society is like a desert. It's vacant of spiritual knowledge. It's vacant of spiritual leadership. And as a result, in the Kali Yuga, people are falling into complete, as Prabhupada said, into a state of animal existence. He called it the royal addition of the animals. That's how they're living. And the churches are vacant. They're empty. In Toronto, we had a chance to buy one of the most famous buildings in Toronto and turn it into a temple for Radha Kirchur Gopinath and Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Srila Prabhupada wanted the building, and when he first came to Toronto in 1975, he made an offer to the Christian Missionary Alliance. He made them an offer of $300,000. I was in the room when he called up Romeshwar Prabhu, at the time was managing the BBT for Srila Prabhupada, and he asked him, how much money do we have in the BBT? And Romeshwar said, we have 300,000. He turned to Jagadish, he said, okay, make them an offer for $300,000. So I've told the story before, but we have a lot of new people here on the global class. So we made the offer of $300,000, and the Christian church, actually what happened was, and there are beautiful pictures of it, we went to see the church. Now, we were a bit naive, I must say, because we thought, how could the Christians be so bigoted, so, how can I say, racist in a way? But sure enough, we got out of the car. Prabhupada was with us. There was a group of about 10 of us with Srila Prabhupada. And we went on a tour of the church. We walked around, and he had his cane with him, and I can still remember him walking into the large church room, the preaching room, very big room. It's a 25,000 square foot building. So it was just mostly building. Prabhupada walked all over the building, and he studied everything with these Christian priests with him. And so we left. And Prabhupada, when we came, he had sandalwood on his forehead. So naturally, people from the West, they look at the sandalwood pulp, they wonder, what is this decoration on his head? And flower garlands, and all of us in dhoti with shaved head and Sikha. Nowadays, you can have a shaved head. It's just part of the style of the modern world. It's no big deal. Everybody's got different hairstyles. I get complimented constantly with my Sikha. So, but back then, oh my God, what are these people dressed like this? Look at their hair. Look at their decorations. Look at these flowers. Oh, they're wearing flower garlands. Excuse me? Flower garlands? Is there something? Yeah, because you're such a royal edition of an animal. You have no idea what you're doing, Mr. Karmi. But anyway, getting back to the story, so we went back and we waited, because you put the offer in, you have to get a response back. So we prepared a written offer while Prabhupada was in Toronto with us on Gerrard Street, and we got a sign back. Or no, excuse me, we didn't get a sign back. We got a call back. And the callback was that they would rather burn the church down than sell it to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Now, what happened was I was, after that, he left because he said, well, what can we do? All we have is $300,000. You have no money. We had no money at the time. And he said, what can we do? And he left Toronto. But the following year, after I took over as the president by Krishna's arrangement, we went out. I meditated on what Prabhupada had told us at the time. I wasn't the president, I was the vice president, but I meditated on what he had said. You have no money, so what can you do? And I realized, yes, without money, you can't buy a prominent building like this in Toronto. So I took up the mission. I was originally the Sankirtan leader. So I moved into the role of the Sankirtan leader, temple president with our membership. We had a bunch of really sold out, sincere devotees, Prabhus. That was the mood back then. People were surrendered. They walked into the temple with nothing, and they didn't want anything. All they wanted was to serve Srila Prabhupada and the mission of Lord Chaitanya. It was a much different time and place. But at any rate, I won't get into the details. We went ahead and we organized through different ways and means to raise a down payment for the church. and we bought the church. And Prabhupada sent me a telegram. He said, "Congratulations." He sent that from Nairobi. And then he sent a letter to me. He said, "It's a topmost triumph that you've got this building for Kṛṣṇa." So put a sign up chanting Hare Krishna on both sides of the building. And in this way, you can spiritualize the city of Toronto. So Prabhupada was ambitious to spread the Krishna consciousness movement with the help of his disciples. He was trying to explain to the society here how great God is. Because people in this age, this modern age, they have no knowledge of who God is. I was raised as a Roman Catholic. So in catechism, they showed a picture of Christ, or of God, I should say, excuse me. And what it was, I still remember this vividly. I think any of you who were raised as Catholics might have seen the same picture. It was a picture of an old man sitting behind a large judge's table with no face. That was it. So God is great, but how great is he? What does he look like? Where does he come from? What is the real purpose of life? What is the nature of the soul? How do we leave this world, get out of this illusion and go back to Godhead? No answers. Just simple, basic philosophy of love thy neighbor as thyself. Believe in God and follow the Pope. So here today in these purports, we've got a detailed explanation about how God is appears in three different forms: Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So these different aspects Prabhupada is explaining to us and to everyone through his books so that we can understand who we are and what we're supposed to do in this human form of life. I wanted to read quickly from the Bhagavad Gita a further explanation of this from chapter 15, text 15, from the unadulterated original Bhagavad Gita, not the yellow version, everyone. When you're distributing your books, make sure you get these original books if you can procure them and distribute those. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto, matakshmitir jnanam apohanam cha, vedascha sarva savera hame vivedjo, vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. And we'll read directly to the verse translation. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Am I to be known? Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So we'll read a little section here. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruit of results. He is not only worshipable as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to the people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, and Kṛṣṇa in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva is the Srimad Bhagavatam. It gives us the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, the giver of knowledge, and in the form of the Vedas and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita, he is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus, God is all good. God is all merciful. So, such insights that are available to us through these literatures that Srila Prabhupada has provided. We are very blessed people in the Prabhupada Disciples Association to be focused on Prabhupada's words as we move through the study of these books. I wanted to make one last comment. I thought it was interesting to note that on page 98 in the purport, I had one devotee, Prabhupada disciple, not mentioning his name, he is a friend of mine, but he was questioning, why does Kṛṣṇa put the devotees in so much suffering when he's all good? When he's all good, when he's all opulent, when he has everything, why doesn't he give us unlimited money? Why doesn't he make it easy for us? Why does he make it so difficult? So here it's interesting to note in this particular purport, this statement by Srila Prabhupada, who also experienced a great deal of difficulty in his work to spread Krishna consciousness. Remember, when he had a business, Balaram, when he had a business, it went bankrupt. Who would have thought, that the pure devotee would lose his money? But it was here, and I was thinking of when I was reading this, here is Prabhupada speaking from his own personal experience. And this is how he saw it. The Lord is also the recipient of all the adoration offered by his devotees, for whom he is the objective and the goal. For his devotees, the Lord creates a favorable condition for developing a sense of transcendental love of Godhead. So here it's a bit, it seems a bit like you're expecting something else when he continues. Sometimes he does this by taking away a devotee's material attachments by force and baffling all his material protective agents. For thus the devotee must completely depend on the Lord's protection. In this way, the Lord proves himself the leader of his devotees. So what appears to be a contradiction here of terms, most favorable, generally when you lose everything, Vinod, isn't it unfavorable? Oh, I lost all my money. Oh, I lost my wife. Oh, I lost my house. I lost my car, my dog, all my material possessions. But here, Prabhupada is very profoundly explaining to us that this is a blessing from Kṛṣṇa. Because remember this, we are not this body. Nothing belongs to us. You're born into this world with nothing. You leave with nothing. And the only credit that you have is the credits that you accumulate in your Kṛṣṇa conscious bank account. One of our devotees last night, who's a diabetic in Hamilton here, almost passed away. And he called me up this morning. And he said, I fell into deep coma. I told him, well, you're in a good situation. You're following these classes. You're chanting your rounds. You're offering your prasadam. What else can you do? Krishna will protect you. So at any moment, life can be shattered by the material world, which is full of misery, suffering, and death. So the best thing we can do is use our time and our intelligence as much as possible and our facilities to get the credits of Krishna by serving the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. Yaśodā, please.
I think this is a very important point that you're raising. One thing I wanted to point out here, there's a devotee on this call, Rathayatra Prabhu in India.
Oh, yeah.
And I notice I'm looking behind him, there's a painting of Lord Jagannath.
Oh.
And there's a picture of Srila Prabhupada at some point, and there's some kind of a tapestry of Lord Jagannath's eyes over there. And it's like, it's just a very blissful experience to see the environment. And I'm looking, because this is the first time in these classes that I'm not using my little cell phone. Venkat Prabhu was able to fix all these things. And I'm looking behind Balaram Prabhu, and there's two nice tulsi plants there. And it's just such a blissful, transcendental experience of being able to see the devotees in such brilliant colors, because this is very important, association with devotees. And I mean, even during Prabhupada's manifested presence, we didn't have all this technology. I mean, there was technology, but it was not as easily available as it is now, that everybody can assemble. We can hear the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, discussed amongst ourselves, raise different issues. And this is really Krishna's mercy on us, that we should take advantage of it and try to give that association to others. What do you think, Balaram Prabhu?
I'm right.
Yeah, you're all right. You're on again.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I regret I seem to have come in late. I think the lesson was starting previously at 11 o'clock my time. So did it come early? Because I've logged in.
Yeah, what's happened is we have a daylight savings time here. So I'm sorry we didn't really give everyone a forewarning. Thank you. I noticed that the attendance was a little bit down at the beginning. It's expanded up again.
Yeah.
Because of the time.
I logged on at 11 o'clock my time, and it was just at the end of the nectarine of Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu.
Oh, so fabulous class.
I missed basically and when I came in, I was just explaining about the three aspects of the absolute truth, Bharanti tattva vidas, tattva jnanam advayam, brahmati paramatmati, bhagavaniti sabjate. And I was just thinking, so I was collecting my thoughts at that time, thinking, where am I up to? I'm looking through the Bhagavatam, trying to find whereabouts on the purport we're up to. But I was just thinking, Srila Prabhupada has unraveled the mystery for us. You know, the mystery. Spiritual life for the non-devotee is a complete mystery. I mean, at the most, I think if they can burn some incense or have a crystal near them or something, they're going to become enlightened. There's every day. And Prabhupada said, as Kali Yuga progresses, there'll be many more advertisements for yoga classes in the yellow pages of the phone book. So many more advertising. I don't think anyone uses yellow pages anymore. It's all Google search and everything. But we can see that, I mean, the living entities, they're actually, we're all searching after pleasure. Anandamaya Abhyasat, in the 1112 of Vedanta Sutras, the supreme absolute truth, the supreme Lord is pleasure seeking. That is the intrinsic nature of Krishna. The supreme absolute truth is pleasure seeking, and because we are part and parcel of Krishna, we also have the we have the want for pleasure. I mean,
yes.
Prabhupada said even the worm in stool, you take him out of the stool, he'll go back into the stool again because he thinks that is his pleasure. So in this, so and we can see that even in this age, they're making all the endeavor is for increasing their pleasure and domination, and also we have to see that the materialists, we might say, oh, they're very powerful, they've got so much money. Well, part of their pleasure is to control. There's a pleasure.
Yes.
People get pleasure out of controlling. I mean, you'll see someone, they've got billions of dollars, billions of dollars, literally, yet still they're not satisfied. They want to control. So they've got so much money, they could just retire and enjoy. But the pleasure for them is that who they can control. So it's, we see that Srila Prabhupada has actually given us a true understanding of spiritual life. And we've never heard previously of God being the supreme enjoyer. We've never heard. It was at the best, it was always impersonal, as you're saying. And Prabhupada said, I was listening to a class recently, and Prabhupada said, even the Christians, they're impersonalists, because who are they praying to? Who are they asking for from their bread, to get their bread from? It's an impersonalism. So, but at the same time, acknowledging that there is a supreme. We were having some classes with Srila Prabhupada in 1974 in Juhu. This was when just the little Radharas Bihari's little shed was there. Did you go to Juhu Beach, Prabhu?
Yeah, I've been there.
Shed. Yeah.
I was there, when before the building was constructed.
Oh yeah, before the building was. I arrived.
It was very austere. Very austere.
I arrived there at about 1 o'clock in the morning, time in India, and the Chowkidars let me in. They saw I had dhoti on. They let me in. This was 1974 at the festival time. And they let me in, and I was just flown from Australia. All I had was a sleeping bag and a little bag, and I thought, I've got to get somewhere to sleep. So I saw a shed in the middle of the big field, and I crawled up onto the platform, rolled out my sleeping bag, and jumped in the sleeping bag. Oh, so tired. And then all of a sudden, must have been very shortly, someone's waking me. They're shaking me, saying, Prabhu, it's time for Mangalati. You have to get up. Was actually where I'd found was the platform in front of Radharas Bihari, the deity. So I was sleeping on the floor in front of the deities. So I had to run over to the brahmachari quarters where they had big bucket showers, and Tamal Krishna and Satswarup were showering, and they were in the next bucket there. And Madhavisa told me, he said, there'll be no, Prabhupada will be in up in Mayapur already, and there won't be any devotees there. And I heard these two that I recognized their voices, and said, we shouldn't keep Prabhupada up so long talking. He's getting a bit tired. We should give it. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, and they said, Srila Prabhupada's here. So there was only about 6 or 8 devotees. So was there with Prabhupada for that wonderful time, personally. But as I was saying, all the living entities, the pleasure seeking, want to enjoy, but Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and that's our problem. We try to enjoy without Krishna. And excuse me, I was actually in a couple of classes that I've just been listening to this week, and Prabhupada giving classes on the 10th canto. So I'd just like to finish by reading a couple of the little excerpts from Srila Prabhupada's classes. I always find wonderful that you always find things in Srila Prabhupada's classes that aren't necessarily there in his books, the extra little bits of nectar.
Yeah, exactly.
So this was a class, New Vrindavan, September the 7th, 1972. I just copied this out this morning. Prabhupada says in the purport, because a living entity by nature being part and parcel of God, he wants also enjoy life without work. That is his tendency. Just like Krishna is enjoying with gopis, with Radharani, but he's not working. He hasn't got to work. We don't hear from Bhagavatam, any Vedic literature, that Krishna has a great factory and he has to go to office at 10 o'clock and then bring money and then come home and enjoy with Radharani. So there's laughter when you're listening to the class. The devotees all laughed. Prabhupada says, we don't want that such kind of rascal God. We want God who hasn't got to work anything. That is God. Natasya kayam karanam chavidyate. Swastatan Upanishad 6:8. That is the Vedic information. God has nothing to do. Then what kind of God he is? He is simply for enjoyment. One European gentleman went to Calcutta. He saw many temples, and when he came to our temple, he saw the Radha Krishna. He went to other temples also, Kalis. So he remarked, oh, here is God. His remark was that I saw other temples, they are working. The goddess Kali is working, but here he's enjoying. So God, that description is there in the Vedanta Sutra, Anandamayo Vyasat, 1.1.12, and Srimad Bhagavatam, that was from a class on 1 to 9 in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the last little bit I'll finish with, therefore, this was from a class, Venkat, Hyderabad, April 23, 1974. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is to make people free from all sinful activities. Then they will be happy, because in the soul proper, it is pure. Just like you contaminate some disease, so you suffer. You have got to suffer. You have got some pain, so you have to go to the physician. He will give you some medicine to counteract the contamination. Then you become happy. Similarly, we're all part and parcel of God. Krishna, naturally, we must be happy. Anandamayo Vyasat. This is our position, that we must always Anandamaya jubilant. This is our position. Just like Krishna is dancing, you have seen. Similarly, our position is simply dancing with Krishna and be happy. That is our position. But we have come to this material world to enjoy independently of Krishna. Therefore, we have been captured by the illusory energy. So Prabhupada just so succinctly explains the whole absolute truth in a nutshell, as we say. Anyway, sorry I missed the start of the class, but I caught a little bit of nectar at the end. So thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you very much. Vinkat Prabhu, I saw your hand was up. You wanted to make a comment earlier.
I just had a question.
Go ahead, please. By all means. We're going to carry on with a little bit more discussion, since we've got a lot of people here in the class today, and we'd like to hear from a few more of our God brothers. Vinkat, please, your question.
Yeah, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu was mentioning that the other sampradayas, they don't recognize Krishna as the Supreme Personality. So I was just wondering what they think about Lord Chaitanya. What about